Hey everyone, welcome to the weirdest news in history, or Weirder News Wednesday, with me, your host, Ben Chasteen. So throughout history, we've all been intrigued by myths and legends of reported gateways to hell or portals to the underworld found in our world to the pits of hell. Could they be real or just myth or legends? In this episode, I'm digging into the strange, the dark, and the edges of reality that will make you question everything. Here are some real life places that could just be maybe the gates of hell. So let's jump in and explore these mysterious locations to the underworld. All right, let's just jump into this with number 5. And actually, today I have my brother with me, Jordan, who's helping me out in replace of Wednesday right now. So, Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. So this is cool. I think this might be the first time the two of us have done something like this. So possibly I think you and I will be doing more of these in the future. So
I'm excited. This is gonna be rad.
Me too. Let's start with Hierapolis, number 5 on our list here of potential places that could be the portal of hell. So it's Hierapolis is an ancient Roman hotspot in what's now pretty much Turkey, built under Emperor Tiberius between 14 and 37 BC, long time ago. So you've got white terraces, hot springs pulling in tourists, ruins of baths, a gym, even an old church. So these are all these different photos that we're going through right now of this area. If that sounds like a nice getaway, maybe back in the past, except this city held a very, very dark secret, which was literally a doorway to the underworld. And it could literally be your last step. They called it Pluto's Gate, or plutonium. Yeah, plutonium. And it's no myth. Archaeologists found it in 2011, which was a small stone door carved into the wall of an open arena, leading to a cave that reeks of death. Jordan, could you make that photo bigger by any chance? So, spectators packed the seats around it, literally, during this time, as their jaws dropped, as the animals dropped. Yep, they just collapsed, dead right on the spot. Like something something invisible just snapped their necks. Meanwhile, the priests made it out completely untouched. So this is what they would do. They would bring in these animals, and then as soon as they brought them in, they would die, and then everyone else would be fine. So many people at the time thought it was like magic or some kind of divine power. I mean, they thought it was their god doing this. Turned out it was just some extremely messed up science that I don't know if even the priests at the time realized what was happening, but they knew how to make themselves safe through this. So an ancient philosopher, Strabo, wrote about it 2,000 years ago. He said, quote, this space is filled with a cloudy, dark vapor, so thick you can barely see the bottom. Animals that step in die instantly. I tossed in sparrows. They drop dead mid-flight. Even bulls kneeled over, dragged out lifeless. I mean, it sounds pretty crazy, right? But here's the kicker. Modern researchers went there to check it out, and they found that CO2 levels outside the door were around 40 to 50% higher than what they should be. I mean, that's insane. And then once you're in the cave, it spiked up to almost over 90%, about 91% inside the cave. Now, that's not just toxic. That's literally a 1 minute death sentence for anything that is breathing. Once you walk in, it's like you're dead. So it turns out Hierapolis sits on a volcanic fault line that some people like. So this crack, or sorry, so this crack warms the springs that made the town famous. It also pumped out carbon dioxide, pretty much like a silent assailant. So at night, it pools into a thick, misty cloud, knee high, heavy, and lethal. So the Romans, they thought it was the breath of Cerberus, one of their gods, that was like, or not necessarily a god, but it was the three-headed hellhound that guarded the gates of hell, kind of like or Hades, I should say, kind of like the dog in Harry Potter, the three-headed dog. That's exactly what it is, and they believe that this hellhound guarded the gates of Hades. Yeah, there's that beast looking thing, and they weren't wrong about the danger, that's for sure. Birds drop dead flying too close, bugs wouldn't stand a chance, and if you're dumb enough to wade in, you're definitely not coming back out. So the priests somehow figured it out. They were tall enough, or at least smart enough, or I don't know exactly how they figured it out, but they knew that if they kept their head above the gas, so sometimes they would stand on like an extra stone to make them a little, or another stone to make them a little bit taller. But the animals had no chance. So they were trapped in the cloud, and that's it. So to the crowd, they were thinking, oh, this is Pluto flexing his power, with a straight shot to the underworld. I mean, that's literally what they thought. They're like, this literally is a tunnel to the underworld. They made it even like, I don't want to say a tourist trap, but it was a very touristy thing. It's like people that went there to visit, they could buy birds at the local market specifically to throw in and watch them die. So kind of morbid and twisted, but that's the way it was. But I mean, yeah. So literally, it was kind of like this theater thing, complete with a gateway seating and a vibe that screams, definitely don't mess with this. And the Romans pretty much, did this kind of gig for a few centuries until eventually the Christians came in and sealed it up with bricks during the 6th century. But, over the centuries, quakes, like earthquakes and natural disasters, all kinds of things, like kind of broke it open a little bit more. And now it actually has been excavated, and it's open to visitors now. So you can go there. However, the CO2 isn't as bad in that area. I mean, you're not going to die when you walk in. They now have like more of a tourist thing where you can walk through it and everything, and you can stare into the abyss without joining it. So I don't know. Still not sure if I would want to take my next vacation there, but but it'd be cool to experience, and see kind of in some aspects. But I think there's way more on the list that's way more intriguing, such as this next one. So let's move on to number 4. All right, next one, number 4. Octun Tunichil Muknal. Say that 4 times fast. So it's a cave. Octun means it means cave in the Maya language. So Tunichil Muknal is our next one. And so literally this more feels straight out of a nightmare. So this cave that some believe, especially back then, was a doorway to hell itself. So it's buried deep beneath the earth and in the jungles of Belize, believe it or not. And there's a spot that fits, this whole thing. So it's Octun Tuni Chil Muknal, or the locals call it ATM Cave. And it's not a cave that will give you money, that's for sure. So it translates to Cave of the Stone Sepulchre. So it's a hidden cave sealed away for over thousand years after the Mayan Empire crumbled. It was only discovered in 1989, so this is fairly recent. Jordan, can you can pull up some photos of this if you want. Um, there you go. Can you zoom in a little bit? There, we're gonna show more photos than this, but this is the one of the skeletons that I'm gonna get into. So it stretches more than 3 miles underground in a massive twisting maze of chambers, tunnels, and carved out by ancient rivers and maybe even like ancient civilizations back in like way back in the day. So when archaeologists first ventured inside, they found relics dating back to about 800 AD. So there was pottery tools, and then something far darker was found, which there you go, right there. The bone, like, can you stop on that? Yeah, there we go. Bones of human sacrifices they found. The cave is kind of a graveyard, but very extremely grim. Among the remains are kids as young as 4 years old with their skulls bearing marks of like blunt force trauma, meaning like they were like killed by something very brutal. Believe it or not, that is not the most shocking part. Can you go back to that first skeleton that you showed, Jordan? There is a skeleton so ancient that calcite has turned its bones into what they call a shimmering crystalline spectacle named the Crystal Maiden. There we go, right there. That's it. So you can't really tell in this photo, but they said it actually kind of shimmers. It almost looks like it's made of crystal, but it's not. It's this. It's because it's got like calcite has formed all over the years. They originally thought it was a young woman, but after experts studied it a little bit more, they realized it was a young teenage, or it was a teenage boy that was left there as an offering who was murdered. And he isn't alone. They found, there you go. You can kind of see a little bit more of the crystalline. It almost looks like some kind of crystal. But there are at least 13 others, including infants, and they're also scattered deeper into the caves as you keep going. So the big question is why here? I mean, this is like we're talking about a couple miles deep into this cave, and the Maya saw it more as just a cave. They actually saw it as a gateway to Shibalba, which means their underworld. And it was ruled by death gods and filled with they believed it was filled with rivers of blood and scorpions. I mean, that's why they call it the underworld, right? Blood and scorpions. But so these were sacrifices being made to Shibala. And the way the bodies are positioned and the broken pots with holes punched through them, it all points to rituals designed to reenact what's called the Popol Vuh creation myth. I'm not even really sure what that means. Popolvuh, creation myth, to reach out to the divine. So this just wasn't random bloodshed. These were sacrifices being made. Now, back in the 10th century, the Maya was grappling with relentless droughts and disasters. I mean, it was all kinds of stuff. So they believed that the lords of Xibalbal were behind it. And so that's why they were sacrificing kids, teens, whoever they brought down there in a desperate plea to stop the chaos, which is, probably just only added more fuel to the chaos. It's like, let's just sacrifice some humans to stop the madness. And probably in reality, it created more madness. But you do have to swim through the cave and wade through some really dark waters. I mean, I'm talking like pitch black waters where without a flashlight, you would have no idea where you were. And you have to climb a little bit more to the deepest reaches to find these remains. I mean, that's like scary to even think about. I don't even know how in the world somebody actually found this. I guess some cave diver was like, I mean, because that's why it wasn't found until 1989, because it's like it was so far deep in there. I mean, it was only like until technology advanced where someone went in there and figured out like, hey, whoa, look what we found here. That would be the most scariest thing to come upon, though. Just in this dark, deep cave, and you find all these bones of young kids. Like, that's just like, who the hell does that? Seriously, I'm just gonna go into this cave and whatever. Anyway, it's kind of crazy. um National Geographic once called it the world's top sacred cave. I mean, I don't think sacred would be the word the right word here. I would probably refer to it as most terrifying cave on the planet. It's not very sacred to me, even though these remains are there. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I would honestly think that they probably would want their remains removed from that, but no one's gonna touch it at that point. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you go down there? Would you see it? Jordan, what about you? Would you go see
I
it?
would totally do that. I've swam underwater in the, like, cenotes in Mexico,
Yeah,
so
I
I
know
would
we both went.
no, so
Yeah,
I've
we
been, like, deep under caves and water
yeah,
with, like, you can't see anything below you. I know that's, like, terrifying to most people, but
right, I know.
I would totally do it. So,
I
sounds awesome
might.
to me.
I mean, if I had scuba diving equipment, and we knew where we were going, and it wasn't like wasn't for like long. I mean, there's I was doing this one time where there was this cave where it was so dangerous because it was so narrow at one point in time in this cave that you're going through that people get stuck there and their scuba diving equipment gets stuck and you can't get out and then you just die because there's actually like numerous bodies that they come across because of it. But something like this seems a little bit more open, and obviously the Maya went down there without even equipment, without even a flashlight. Like, that's insane to think about. Like, how in the world did they even find this? Because yeah, then there's no like you can hold a torch, but then once you're in the water, that's it. So I would imagine there's no like super narrow pathways or anything. It's probably you just probably have to swim, but it may be pretty open in a sense where you're not actually swimming underwater underneath like a giant rock or something like that. But I don't know, if I was with some people that knew what they're doing and maybe a guide, like maybe I would go. It just depends who I'm with, I guess. So I don't know, we'll see. Well, if that one doesn't freak you out, this next one is pretty crazy. Houska Castle Gothic Chapel. I think it's Husa. I think it's Houska Castle. I'm sorry, Houska Castle Gothic Chapel. I mean, say that like 15 times. Like, oh my gosh. There it is right there. So next we're heading to the Czech Republic, about 30 miles north of Prague, to a place that's been whispering dark secrets for centuries. Houska Castle. And trust me, the Gothic chapel inside this fortress is enough to make your skin crawl, which may be even more freakier than. Well, the cave is one thing. You're going in this dark, deep place. This more about the story itself and the Nazi connection, which I had no idea until I started researching this. So that's insane. We'll get into that. But the story is in the late 13th century, Bohemian ruler Ottokar II, or someone under his watch, throws up this castle in the middle of nowhere. Imagine you're walking in a forest, middle of nowhere in the forest, and you're just like, I'm just going to put up a castle here. There's no trade routes. There's no water supply. There's no way to like bring anything to this castle. Not even really much food. It's just like this dense forest. There's no kitchen inside this thing, and no one ever lived there ever. So it's like, why waste all this manpower and resources to build this thing in the middle of nowhere? But so there's the larger castle, and then there's the Gothic chapel inside the castle, and that is dedicated to Archangel Michael. It's 2 stories and it's pointed archer. So this is like the general whole thing, and then there's the chapel part, Jordan, which is inside. I think there's photos below this, but there. That's the actual chapel part inside of what you're seeing there. So locals swear what happened was that there was some bottomless pit that lived here. And I mean, and it wasn't just a hole. They believed it was actually a gateway to hell itself. And the local legends say that these winged demons, half human beasts, and even shadowy figures were all crawling out of this hole, terrorizing villages. Makes me kind of wonder if this is like where Mothman originated from or something. So what ended up happening is that the king or ruler at the time was like, okay, we got to seal this thing up, and so they built this chapel, almost like a holy lid, over it, sealing the floor. And it's so thick, it's literally like, nothing's going to get out of this because it is massively thick. The chapel's also inside. It's got these amazing frescoes. And Jordan, can you pull this up? This was, let's see if you can see where I'm at here. These are really pretty incredible, and some of the oldest in Europe, I found out, from the 1400s. And this one that Jordan's pulling up right now, it's Michael. It's like one of the famous paintings of Michael slaying a demon, and like cosmic judge kind of stuff, and the, like, what I want to say, like final judgment kind of things and stuff. And there's that really super famous painting that's based out of. And this one is a centaur. It's kind of weird just to have the centaur there, and I can't tell what it's pointing its arrow at. It's kind of faded now, but anyway, I mean, it makes me wonder if centaurs were once upon a time real. Rob and I have kind of talked about that too. Then there's some weird, freaky devil looking thing on some throne. And it's like, this thing is, it's not quite as scary as just the energy coming off of this thing is really, really weird. So it's like, what's this devil thing doing there? Which is a lot of what people ask. And some say it's actually a warning about whatever is under the floor. So, that's like why it's there. It's like, hey, these demons were coming out, and this is like a warning to anybody that goes there, that if you open this up, you're essentially letting these demons come up. So pretty weird. The walls are extremely thick. The doors are bolted like a vault, and even now they're still damp. No matter how dry it is, even if it doesn't rain forever, it's like they're always permanently damp. No one can really explain that. Visitors say they've heard scratches and even screams, and something like crawling at the, like, almost underneath or at the walls, like trying to get out. Kind of freaky, right? But here's where it gets really, really nuts. So World War II happens. Jordan, you can leave that photo up. That's fine. It's also another view from inside of it. But World War II rolls around, and then the Nazis take over Houska. And rumors started swirling that they just weren't there to chill. Like, I mean, Hitler was sending Nazis all over the place. He was sending them to like Antarctica. Like, why Antarctica, right? So clearly they were looking for very specific things. And by the way, we did a whole series of the Relics of Power, all about like what Hitler was looking for. So I would imagine that he heard about this place and sent his troops there to try to figure out whether they can like harness some. I mean, imagine it's like, hey, dude, if we can, or guys, if we can get some demon thing out of here and use it as a weapon. I mean, I'm sure that they were trying, no matter whether the stories were real or not. I mean, and that's what's freaky. They think he was actually trying to crack the pit open, but it was sealed so strongly that it's like not even dynamite would be able to open this thing. However, there's no smoking gun or no declassification of files that said that they were like trying to summon these demons or anything. It is true that they were there, but no one really, they can only speculate that's why Hitler was there. So there's a whole question whether Hitler actually found a gate to hell. But anyway. But in a plot twist, I did not see that one coming. Sorry, had to say that. Bad joke.
Ouch. That was bad. Even for your standards, that was bad.
But you did not see that one coming. Anyway, this place isn't just a relic either. It's also a puzzle, because of because of the way it's built, and like no one really understands why. So anyway, it still has lots of tourists. A lot of people go there to visit, and it still brings a lot of questions. But like I said, many tourists say they hear different things when they're there. So I would love to go. I'd love to go to all these places and check it out and see. I would love to bring like ghost hunting equipment and all kinds of stuff to see, especially something like that. I mean, this isn't ghosts. These are like demonic things, supposedly, you know? So I wonder if anything would pick up, even like energetically, or anyway, pretty crazy stuff. This next one is more mentioned in the Bible and is related to Jesus. So let's get into number 2. I think this is pronounced Gehenna. Gehenna, I think. Number 2 here. So, all right, for our second location, we're heading to a place just outside Jerusalem called Gehenna, or I think that's how you pronounce it, Gehenna. It's a valley with a rap so sinister it might just be a gateway to hell. But wait till you hear what Jesus actually said about it. Not what you've been told. This one actually could really twist your whole thinking about hell and Jesus's words, really. So it's a steep, rocky gorge southwest of Jerusalem's old city, the valley of Hinnom or Gehenna, mashed into Gehenna. It's quiet now. It's mostly just like a green stretch, as you can see. This is the area right here. However, these caves, I feel like these caves hold some kind of crazy dark secret, because you remember this has been 2,000 years, but not really enough for like massive changes on Earth. And it was known as a nightmare zone. So back in the 7th century before Christ, this was where the ancient Israelites basically went off the rails. In the Bible, the 2nd Kings 23, also Jeremiah 7, talks about this. Now, I'm just kind of summarizing what they're both saying, but they're saying they're burning their own kids alive. They're tossing them into the fires to appease Moloch or Baal, or both of them, the bloodthirsty gods. It also mentions screams bouncing off the cliffs, smoke choking the city. It's so vile, the place gets cursed. God's done with it, and the Jews start whispering it's unholy ground. So this area prior to where Jesus is coming. Fast forward to Jesus's time, around 30 AD when he was still alive, and Gehenna is a legend in its own right. It's not just a bad memory. It's Jerusalem's dumpster from hell. So this is where trash, dead animals, even executed criminals get dumped there. They were all set ablaze. They said the fires never quit raging. And it was just massive stunk of sulfur just filled the air. And they said worms squirm and everywhere. It's just like a living horror show, basically. No one in the right mind would actually go there. Only like a place to like worship Satan, basically. Then in the New Testament, there's a scholar named Bert Ehrman from UNC Chapel Hill, and he I mean, he has his own take on this. And he's like, back then, the Greeks, the Romans, the Jewish, the ultimate punishment wasn't torture. It was no burial. Remember that. So like, that's why burial is so crucial, especially back then. If a person wasn't buried, they believed they wouldn't be able to go to heaven or go to the afterlife. So if a body was tossed in Gehenna, it was like desecrated, forgotten, erased. Like, basically it was complete purgatory. Like, you don't want your body to end up there. So, the Romans, out of punishment, would send the Jews there, or, whatever, or even the Greeks would go, and so, or, as punishment or whatever. So this is where Jesus steps into this, and, his famous Sermon on the Mount. He says, if your hand or your eye sins, cut it off, or you're headed to hell. That's what he says. Now, according to some scholars, like that guy I referenced earlier, they believe that Jesus didn't necessarily say the word hell. What the word in the earlier text says is Gehenna, which could be a metaphor or also a like kind of one and the same. Gehenna, hell. He could be using it in a sense of a metaphor, like this is hell, or he could say actually literally Gehenna, meaning like this place over here behind me that no Jew in the right mind would go to. Basically, is what he's kind of saying. So So that's what's so interesting about this. It's and so now they're looking at this place as could have this been like some kind of portal to hell that either Jesus knew about or, the Jewish people in the area or even the Romans knew. And as Jordan was showing, there's like these caves that have these like open mouths, it looks like that kind of go into it. So, I mean, remember, this is like corpse ends on ends were dumped there, unburied, rotten, torched. I mean, this is like the most cursed place on earth. Literally, no, nobody would actually ever come here unless you were like doing something really bad, or like I said, you're like doing some kind of sacrifice to Moloch or Baal or something like that. But again, like and there are these tunnels like Jordan is showing there around in that area. So I mean, I'm sure if they started digging up and excavating that area, they would find all kinds of bones of all kinds of weird stuff. But I don't think that the government probably would never allow that. But and probably nobody wants to anyway. But it makes me wonder, like, why that area specifically. And in the first century, Jews saw it as a symbol. And in the Talmud, it actually says that it's like a mouth to the afterlife, like the purgatory pit. And in Mark 9:43 in the Bible, it says the fire that never goes out. And then it's like, and again, and it's kind of, this is why it could be referring to Gehenna, or it could actually be referring to hell, or it could actually be referring to both of them. And it's hard to say. So back there was a rabbi back in the 1200 AD, and he said the fires were still smoldering. This is 1200 AD. We're talking like 1200 years after Jesus, and the fires were still raging. They never went out. So another that could be another reference to, like, the reference to the everlasting fire, ever whatever it is, everlasting fires that are ablaze or something. So it's hard to say. And 300 meters deep between Mount Zion and the city walls, say you can still kind of feel this energy, the weight of the blood, the ash, and the valley. I mean, because the whole thing was like this damnation. So like now I said, now it's just this valley of trees that, I don't think anyone in the right mind would want to build anything on, which is why it's just kind of open. So you have like kind of the city over there, which I think it's like, that's kind of the beginnings of Jerusalem there. And then you have these like this area here where there's nobody going to build on this ever, because of the history there. I mean, anyone that would build on it would believe that would be cursed, and disaster would fall on whoever is there. I mean, they kind of made it into a park now, but and you can walk through there and everything else, but wouldn't want to live there, that's for sure. Would kind of would like to venture in these caves and see, but I mean, can you imagine a fire that would be raging like that for like 12? Well, I mean, it was before Jesus's time. So we're probably talking about like 1300 years at least. It's crazy long time for like a fire to go on. I mean, think of like a landfill that's just been on fire for forever. Can you imagine the smell? There's actually a landfill that's not too far away from where I live. And every time I like drive getting on the freeway, you can kind of see it and smell it, and it's like, that's kind of crazy. I mean, it doesn't come over here, but there has been fires in that area though. It's kind of crazy to think about. So I don't know. What do you think, Jordan?
I don't know, like, I think, if there was, like, some kinda, like, lava flow or some kind of, like, volcanic thing going underneath there, and let's say it makes the ground rough, like, like, let's say the ground wasn't like, you can't grow anything, like, now you
Mhm.
can because 'cause it's been so long, but if you have this land that's just useless, yeah, turn it into whatever crazy hellhole you wanna turn it into, I guess.
Well, like I said, I don't think I mean, there's all these like rules and
Right.
regulations they
I
have
mean,
up
it could just be something where, like, the land was so rot that they just decided to use it as a landfill themselves, except it wasn't trash, it was people.
Well, now the problem is now it's too close to the cities. You know, they can't. The landfill would be further out and everything else, I imagine, or underground, or who knows? Maybe they are.
No, I
You know.
mean, like, back then. I'm
Oh,
saying
back then,
that
yeah,
that,
back
like, using
then,
then as, like, a
crazy.
landfill type thing where it's just like, you have this land that's useless,
Yeah,
so you just kinda like, "Well, let's just do all this horrific stuff there."
I can't even like fathom. That's just insane to think about. But it gives another perspective of what you know, understanding what Jesus was talking about too. Like I said, either metaphorically or literally. So it's kind of interesting. But moving on to number one with our gates of hell here. This one is definitely probably my favorite on the list, which is why it's number one. St. Patrick's Purgatory. This one actually, Rob and I did talk about this one on our Portals to Hell episode that we did, and it was like one of the very first episodes that we ever filmed, and the audio was so terrible in that one that I was like, yeah, we can put this one on the list again. So what is St. Patrick's Purgatory? Well, it's an ancient pilgrimage site which dates back to around the 5th century. It's an island, as you can see, near off of Ireland there. Loudurg or Ludirg is the name of the island, I guess. So St. Patrick at the time, you know, again, this is like fifth century. This isn't too far after Jesus was having a hard time converting people to Christianity. Um, because you know there was a lot of like still paganism and all kinds of things going on. So he was like, well, I want more proof to help people, you know, understand that what Christianity is or whatever. So the story is that he prayed to God and how he could convert more Irish people. And through a vision, God revealed to him that there was a pit in the ground which he called Purgatory on this island. So he started making trips out to this island and bringing people, you know, out by boat to show people this place, so they would all believe. And the story is when people saw the purgatory, the reality of the torments of hell began to set in and the joys of heaven. And from then on, thousands of people started making this pilgrimage to see this whole site. Um, so then there's a story about Owen, Knight Owen, who is around 1148. And the story is that Owen is greeted by priests who tell him that this place was a place for souls who have been purified in purgatory to rest before their entry to heaven. So this is the story of Knight Owen, which is crazy story. Again, this is 1148. This is after, so you know, St. Patrick found this hole. Then Knight Owen goes into this cave and he's basically told that he needs to go into the cave, kind of like Luke Skywalker going into the, you know, in Empire Strikes Back, where he goes into the cave. And he met these monks while he was going in there, and they told him that if his journey becomes too difficult, to call on Jesus Christ and Jesus will come and aid him through his journey. So as he was walking deeper and deeper into the cave or to this hole, he heard a loud roar, and then demons started rushing forth after him. Um, the story is that demons dragged him and tried to pull him down further into the fire that he saw. But at that point, he called out Jesus's name, and then they weren't able to touch him. So then he continues down on his journey even more, and he says he sees souls in purgatory. This is St. Patrick right here, being souls in purgatory being tortured by demons. And of course, and he said that the story is that they were trying to torture Owen, but they were unable to harm him because of his protection. Finally, he comes to a large fiery river. Like, just think of a river that's just purely on fire, and it's said with an awful stench, filled with demons that were just tormenting people or souls. The demons reveal that beneath the river is the actual entrance to hell. And the only way that he can cross, so the only way he can go through safety is this narrow, rickety bridge opens up in front of him. Like, think of, like, you know, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when he's like walking across that super rickety bridge that's extremely scary. Not a fun place to be. Anyway, so he looks down at this bridge and then he calls out Jesus's name, and then it magically widens enough for him to cross safely so he doesn't fall into the river of hell or whatever it is, or the fire river. And then upon walking to the other side of the bridge, he actually walks into this like beautiful earthly paradise. And this is kind of the story here of kind of like journeying through this. And then on the other side is this beautiful paradise. And he is greeted by these priests who tell him that this was a safe place for souls to rest who have been purified in purgatory before they go into heaven. And so basically what they're saying is that, you know, it's like sin or whatever is causing these people to go into this pit of hell where they're tortured for a certain period of time. And then once they like pay back their karma or remove that sin or whatever it was, then they're free to enter into the next phase or the paradise. You know, it's like they can go to heaven, in other words. So the priests take Owen to the top of a high mountain where he makes out gates of the celestial heavenly paradise. And then, like, you know, he has this whole vision. And now they put I guess after that, they started sealing it up. And then the rumor, or then they put this, like, just like they did in the Houska Castle, they put this castle here too. And, or or cathedral, really, not really a castle, more like St. Patrick's Cathedral. So now anyone can visit, and it's open, and about 15,000 people a year come to the island to see the cathedral. You do have to surrender your shoes and socks before starting a 3-day journey of prayers. So you're there for 3 days. These pilgrimages that go there's the actual cathedral right there, and supposedly underneath this, it's like if you were to break, same thing with the Houska Castle. If you were to break the floor down, there would be a cave, and in that cave is the so-called pit of hell. So pilgrimage fasts from midnight in before they arrive to for 3 days. Anyways, they fast for 3 days. They do get a daily snack of dry toast, oat cake, and black tea or coffee. Okay, I guess I don't know what, you know, if that's like during their fasting or after their fasting. It didn't really say. But anyone caught trying to sleep on the first night is prodded awake, because you have to stay awake. It's kind of interesting. I would love to go to these places. The Houska Castle one. I mean that one. But this too. You know, I mean, I wish we could like find a secret way, and I would love to go down and see if any of these stories and legends are true, you know. But then you start thinking about all these weird things in our world, like Dogman and, like I said earlier, Mothman, and you're wondering if, like, wow, I wonder if these things once upon a time like came through some weird portals like this, or gateways or something, you know. And who knows, you know, I mean, maybe now it's where military bases are very strategic about where they build a base in this world. So, you know, if one of these things were found, I guarantee you, like Area 51, for example, maybe they found something and they're like, okay, we're putting a base here, you know, maybe that's in the middle of nowhere. But of course, they were doing testing stuff. But I'm just kind of making an analogy or an example of this, you know. It's like, who knows what have been found in these weird places, or what exists in our world. But either way, I would love to visit this. I would love to make a video about it. It's definitely on my bucket list of things to do. Maybe one of these days when we, you know, be able to make it through everything that we're doing and have a little extra money, Rob and I can start traveling, or even you and I, Jordan, we can start traveling to these places. And
I
you,
would love that. I would love to go to any of these places. Any of these places would be rad. I would love to do them.
I would too.
Check them out.
This one specifically, I would love to go to, and the Houska Castle, like I said.
Well, I
You
mean,
can
any chance to
visit
get
all
to
of these.
Ireland.
What'd you say?
Any chance to get to Ireland.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I've always wanted to go to Ireland. Never been to anywhere in the UK. I'd love to go. So, well, guys, I hope you like this episode of Weirder News and History. This one was a little bit longer than normal, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you guys all stay weird. And until next time, I'll see you out on the edge. Take care, everyone.